Have you ever thought about moving abroad to teach, but as a single mother, you are not quite sure how you're going to get it done, what support you need, and just the ins and outs of it in general? Well, I have a special guest for us today who is going to talk about her journey moving abroad to teach as a single mother. Welcome, everybody. My name is Javonna MaeRhys, and I am a former high school principal turned international teacher who is now in Southeast Asia with her husband and son after selling her house and leaving everything behind. And I now coach other educators on how they can do the same and improve the quality of their life. And our special guest today is Khanyisa, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. As Giovanna said, my name is Khanyisa. I am from South Africa and I am a primary school teacher. I currently live and teach in Brunei, and I have a son who is 3 years old and he is here with me in Brunei.
Okay, great. So, Kanisa and I, full disclosure, we actually worked together and we came to Brunei at the same time. And so, Kanisa, will you tell us a little bit about your background in teaching? How did you start teaching?
So I got into teaching. That was not my initial career plan. So I went to a university in South Africa called the Witwatersrand, and I intended to study psychology. But while I was there, I realized you don't just only study psychology, you have to take other subjects to get points and credits. And one of those subjects that I took was sign language. And it became my second major after we visited schools for the deaf. And I got to interact with children in schools. And I decided, you know what? I want to teach language. I want to teach at a deaf school. And I changed my major to psychology and sign language instead of philosophy that I was doing. I graduated and then I moved to another province in South Africa called the Western Cape. And I went to the University of Cape Town to do my postgraduate certificate in teaching. Then from there, I got a job in Cape Town and I started teaching. I first taught year 1 and year 2, all the subjects as a homeroom teacher. And then I moved to a deaf school where I taught high school and I just focused on language skills. And then I taught there for, I think, 3 years. And I decided I need to move abroad.
Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit more about what went into your decision to move abroad and teach.
There are 5 reasons why I decided to move. So the first one, the most important one, was the financial reason. So as much as I enjoyed teaching in South Africa, the salary wasn't enough. I found that I was living hand to mouth and I had to make sacrifices, deciding what I can do, what I cannot do. I'm a mom who wants my child to be involved in a lot of things like swimming, extra activities outside of schooling and outside of our home. And I found that I wasn't affording that, even though his father's involved and his father contributes, like having to constantly ask or, beg someone to help because you want your child to be involved in certain things. That was a problem. Keeping food on the table, paying bills, and also trying to have your child going out, enjoying things. That was the first reason I decided to move. Money, finances, paying my house, paying my car, paying school fees, putting a child in a good school. I didn't want to compromise that because I'm not making enough money. So when I researched on international schools, I realized I will be making double my salary. I'll be able to afford the life that I want. And overseas, in most countries and most schools, you don't have to pay for accommodation. The cost of living is cheap. So that's what made me decide to move abroad, specifically in Brunei, because the financial benefits were much greater than what I was experiencing back home. Secondly, was the safety. I'm raising a boy, and I wanted to raise him in an environment where if he walked out of my door, I don't want to have a panic attack, like who's influencing him, what is he getting up to. I wanted to move to a country where I know if he walked out of there, the society, the environment expects people to behave. There are rules, there are standards. So I want an environment that helps me raise my child because I believe I'm not the only influence. And even if you think you are as a parent, when your child walks out of that door, you don't know. And in South Africa, I found that there is a lot of negative influence. I know I come from there, I love my country, but it's the truth.
Mhm.
There's a lot of drugs, a lot of violence, um, dropouts. So there's a lot of negative influence. And as I mentioned earlier, it depends on the money you have. The better school you send your child to, the better chances of them turning out to be a decent human being. The lower you send them, it's a
Sounds
50-50.
sounds a
Really.
lot like in America as well. Yeah,
Really.
definitely it depends on where you're sending your kid. There's so many factors that go um, into it, finances, as you've already
Yeah.
said. And unfortunately, a lot of teachers will find a position in what they deem to be a good school, but then they can't afford to live there. So they're moving.
Yeah.
They have to, drive far away and maybe live in a place that's not as nice because they can't afford to live in that neighborhood. So I can definitely relate to that. And as the mother of a son as well, especially in America, just being concerned about the influences, and then will he physically be safe when he walks out my door,
Yeah.
or is someone going to harm my son? So safety was also something that influenced me as well.
Yeah. What you're mentioning about sending your child to a school far away, I've experienced that in South Africa as well. Like where parents would send their children to good schools that are far away. But unfortunately, the children do not succeed because they still come back to that environment and they fall to, oh, you think you're better. Why are you going to those
Hmm.
schools? And then they change themselves to sort of fit into the environment they want to be cool with their friends. So that's also another thing. Even though I can afford to send him to the school if I sacrifice where I live, it doesn't really mean that he will succeed if he's coming home to that environment. The friends that he makes around him could also influence him. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's a
I
it's
know it's
a
always a give and take.
yeah. So yeah, it was financial safety, schooling, which I already spoke about. I wanted to afford a good school without breaking the bank and having enough money to save for his future as well. The workload. I wanted time to be a mom as well outside of my career. I wanted time to get to know him, for him to get to know me, to spend time together, to be involved in his life. Not just that I drop him off somewhere and he has to do something. I want to be part of it. I want to be in his little world and grow with him. So in South Africa, the workload was a lot. I found that I got home at around 6 sometimes. You're expected to do extramural till around 5, 6, and then you have to drive home, bath your child, put them to bed, drop them off. So there isn't enough time to sort of be involved in your child's life. Yes, we get school holidays, but you cannot just expect to just spend time with your child on school holidays. You want to get to know them every day and cook supper and be relaxed and not be so stressed out. I wanted to be a happy parent who's, yeah, I
Oh,
wanted
that's
to
such a good point.
balance
Yeah, you want to be a happy parent, and I feel like that's one of the things that a lot of people experience when they start teaching abroad is you compartmentalize your life, right? You've
yeah,
got work and then you've got home, and you in some ways decide, okay, I'm going to suffer over here, but then I'm going to be happy over here. But you can't really be happy over here because you're so tired from everything that you're doing over here. And then everybody
exactly.
else is suffering because you're just irritable and you're tired and you're not being your best self. And so,
Yeah.
definitely.
And also having time to look after yourself, like outside of your child. For example, on Fridays, which is now, I get to drop him off at school and it's me time for like a few hours. I would never have that in South Africa. We go to school Monday to Friday, and that's when he's also at school. And then Saturday and Sunday, he's at home with me. So I'd never get a chance to be by myself and like be good with
And that's so important.
yeah, you have to look after yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. I can definitely relate to that because although I'm remarried now, I spent a large chunk of time being a single mom, working
Yeah.
as a teacher in the United States, and then as an assistant principal, and then a principal. And it's so difficult to get that time for yourself when you're a single mom, because you are taking care of your job, because you've got to have that job in order to provide for
Yeah.
your family. But then yeah, it's just a circle of busyness and a circle of fatigue that we experience sometimes as single moms. So tell me, you talked about finances, safety, not wanting to
Schooling.
break the bank with schooling,
Yeah.
um, and the workload as well.
And then the last thing was the quality of life. I wanted to be happy when I wake up in the morning, which I find that I'm doing here in Brunei. It's very peaceful, it's very happy. I'm not stressed out. I get to go where I want to go. I can afford to travel. I can afford to do stuff for my child that I want to. I don't have to overthink. The quality of life is way better here. The financial relief has made me more at ease. I can enjoy life. I can research stuff to do. I can get involved in more. Ah, it's beautiful.
And I feel the same way. So
Yeah.
I definitely understand that for sure. So tell me, kind of going back, what were some of the things that you did in preparation for moving abroad to teach?
Firstly, you have to decide you want to go. Ask yourself why. You need to think about it. It can't just be something you do today. You decide today and then you're gone tomorrow. It needs to be a process. Why? You need to sit down with yourself, ask yourself why. Then after you've had that discussion with yourself, and then it moves on to the how. There's a lot of YouTube videos, there's a lot of information online. I know a lot of people reach out and ask me, how do you do it? How do you do it? I'm like, go on the online, because my story is not necessarily your story. You have to be willing to do the research to find out what will work for you. Because if I had followed other people as a single mom, it's not that easy to travel. There are countries that are not open to single moms. So if I had went with that route, I would be still at home. So you need to find what you are looking for specifically. Have the time to go online, research what you are looking for. Get the research, contact people online, go on LinkedIn as well. That's how I got in touch with someone who's already here to ask them how it is. So be willing to do the research on how. And then you go through the application process, which is not an easy thing. I know when we watch like YouTube videos, it looks like you do this and then you do this and then you're gone. No, it doesn't work like that. I went through a lot of rejection. There were countries that were not open to single moms. I applied, I got the job, and as soon as I said, yeah, remember I mentioned I had a son, I want to bring him over, they were like, no. So you need to have an open heart and an open mind, knowing that you'll get rejected because you are a single mom. But not all the countries are like that. There are countries that are open to single moms and willing to help you um, to come over. And then also having a discussion with your family, because you're taking away a child and yourself. There will be angry grandparents, sad aunts, and yeah. So having that conversation with your family and bringing them into your journey, not just doing it by yourself. Because when I moved overseas, I left my son for, it was meant to be 3 months. I only left him for a month, but because I had family support, I could do that. And also having to explain to my son, involving him in the process, telling him, showing pictures, like explaining to him what was going on. Because when I was growing up, a lot of things happened to me and I didn't know what was going on. So I wanted my child to know what was going on. Even though he's young, I explained, went down to his level and tried to make him understand that things are about to change for a while and then we're moving and stuff like that. So it goes to decide, think, plan, research, reach out to people who are in the country where you're planning to go, reach out to your family. And if you are moving abroad with a child, make sure you involve the child in the process.
And I think that's really important because you're right. It used to be when I was a child, and like you just said, when you were a child, things would happen to you and around you, and no one
Yeah.
a conversation with you and you're just left trying to figure it out. And so,
Mm,
it's one of those things when you're a single parent, you know your child and you need to communicate with your child. Sometimes
yeah.
when people want to move abroad and they have an older kid, they do have those conversations, but you need to have those conversations when your kid is young as well. And as you said, get down on their level and, break it down in a way that they can understand.
Yeah, and we'd have practice runs. Mommy's coming. I'd be gone. I'd talk. He'd be staying with his dad because we were co-parenting while we were both in South Africa. When he was spending time with his dad, I'd pretend to call and mommy's coming. I'm coming. So he understood that the idea of mommy is coming. I'm coming to get you. I'm not gone forever. You may not see me now, but I'm coming.
So
Yeah. And he
sweet.
got it. He got it. Mommy coming? Yes, mommy's coming.
So, can you tell me about any specific hurdles that you met in the process and how you overcame them?
The biggest hurdle, the only thing that made me sad in this whole process was leaving him behind, which is not something you have to do because there are a lot of people who come over with their children, especially in Brunei. You are allowed to bring a brother, a sister, your mom to come with you to help you. But I didn't have that option. Everybody's working and you cannot just apply for leave and be gone for 6 months. So I had to leave my child. That was the biggest challenge. How I overcame that is because we practiced what I was going to do, and the people that I left him with were willing to parent him the way I want. I told them how I want things to be done, and they were willing and open to do that. Um, he was meant to stay for 3 months because he went to his grandparents in Italy and they hadn't seen him in over a year. So they said, "Can we have him for 3 months?" I said, "Okay." But while I was here, I was like, "No ways. I cannot last 3 months without my child." So 1 month, and then he was here with me because I then had to prepare finding a house, finding childcare, finding a school before he was here. I didn't want that single mom struggle where I'm here with a child and everything is hectic. But if you are able to bring your child with you and you have someone, great. Or if you don't have someone, you can reach out. I know someone who came here with a child and reached out to another colleague, and they left the child with the nanny that they have, and they were able to find their own house, find their own nanny, stuff like that. So that's the biggest challenge, leaving my child. It doesn't have to be your story. You could find a way to bring your child with you. But if you have to leave your child, that was tough for me. What else? The traveling. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I
Traveling with
remember.
a toddler is no joke. Having to bring him over, that was also another challenge, but you just have to do it. And if he has a tantrum on the flight, these people don't know me. It's part of the process. Child is fine. It's okay. I think that was the biggest challenge. Yeah, but otherwise, everything else has been good. Let me
So,
think. Also, another thing that I worried about is my child fitting in. Like, I've lived my life, I made my friends. Yeah, I've done that. And I know there's a phase you go through in life where friends mean a lot. So I panicked a lot about, is my child going to be accepted? Is he going to make friends? Because we do not look or speak like the people where we are going. But yeah, I've reached out to colleagues who are from South Africa who have children here and other teachers who have children as well, who are not necessarily from South Africa, who have children, who've organized play dates. His school is very open. The parents seem very open. He's making friends at school. I'm happy. So that worry about is he going to fit in has been alleviated. Yeah.
yeah, and I can relate to that as well with my son who's 14, and friends are very important in, the teenage
Yeah.
years. And so he has been involved in so many things at school. He was in band back home. He's able to be in band here. He
Hmm.
has so many extracurricular activities that he's been
Wow.
involved in. He's been in gymnastics. He's been in karate. He has been in mindfulness. There was a class for that at school. And
Nice, yeah.
currently he's in a Minecraft club. It's been really good for him to meet people who are outside of what he has known back home in Texas. He's like, I've got
Yeah.
a friend from Scotland now. I've got a friend from South Africa. I've got a friend from this place and this place. And that's something that he would never have experienced at home. And so it's been really good. So,
Mm.
speaking about the hurdles that you overcame with leaving your son behind, can you talk about some of the rewards? You mentioned searching for a house. Can you talk about some of that stuff?
The house. When they gave us the list of the houses, I thought, okay, this is nice. I'm going to look. But every single house you looked at it looked like a house from like a magazine. Oh my gosh. You have to like choose a house from a list of houses and you have to like see so many houses. What's great is that I've been able to find a house that's got enough space for me and my son, enough space for a live-in nanny. It's safe for him to play outside. Yeah, having a house where you also don't have to pay for the rent because your company pays for it. The water bill is cheap, the electricity is cheap. So that's been a good thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, coming, like I knew that the company was paying for our housing. And
Yeah.
I expected, just kind of a small, modest house. And
Me
then when they
too.
started showing us all of the houses, I was like,
What?
this is like twice the size of the house I just sold in the United States, and I get to live here for free now.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned having enough space for a live-in nanny. When we first get here and we're going through the visa process, we're waiting to get our official ID. And so once we get that official ID, we will have the option to have live-in help. And we've talked to so many teachers who have been here and they've gotten their official ID, and
Mm-hmm.
single moms who can afford to have a live-in nanny or to have a driver to take their kids to school, someone who is prepping meals for them. And
Yeah.
even without being a single mom, most people can't afford that back home. And so the
Yeah.
quality of life is just,
Uh, Based on what I've heard from other single moms, having a live-in nanny has been like so helpful because that's not something they can afford back home. They were doing everything by themselves. So having a live-in nanny, as you mentioned, somebody who prepares your child's clothing, prepares their lunch, baths them, take care of them. So when you get home, the only thing you have to do is just bond with your child. You don't have to worry about meals. What are they wearing tomorrow? What are they doing? Who's going to drop them off? That's all sorted for you. So that helps you also as a single mom to parent better, which is something you cannot afford to do back home.
yeah, certainly,
Yeah.
certainly. You mentioned travel as well. So, what have you been able to do travel wise while you've been teaching abroad?
I've been able to go to Malaysia a couple of times because it's right next door and it's very affordable. I've been able to go to Italy and then I went to on a single trip by myself. I left my son. I went to Spain, spent a few days there. I'm planning to travel in March. I might go to Vietnam or the Philippines. So being in Brunei, you're closer to all these Asian countries, which I plan to travel to while I'm still here.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're going to Bali in
Oh,
March
nice.
when we have our break. So yeah, just we're in a great place to be able to travel, like you said, to
Yeah.
the Philippines and Singapore and of course Malaysia, but even China and Japan and Australia, I think is just a 6-hour flight away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we do
And
have.
being able to give your child that experience as well. Like, can you imagine what he's going to say or have the stories to tell when he's older? That's for me is also like a reward.
Yeah, yeah. Like I
Yeah.
saw on your, I think it was on your TikTok, you taking him to ride horses on the beach.
Yes. We did that a couple of times because once you do it once with a toddler, you have to do it over and over and over again. But luckily it was affordable and I could do it over and over again. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, um, in addition to that, I'd like to talk a little bit about your day to day in the classroom and kind of give people an idea of what it's like working. Um, Tell them what level you're teaching and then kind of what a day looks like.
Okay, so I am teaching PRA, also known as kindergarten, year one and year two. So I only have three classes, which means I only teach 3 hours because each class is an hour long. My routine for all of the classes is basically the same. I have an objective for the day, steps to success on how to achieve that goal. We go through that, and then they do the activity, and then we reflect on the activity, correct the activity, and then they're out. So I think once you've had a year of teaching here and you sort of sorted out your lesson plans and how to do it, teaching from there on should be easy. And you also get like a lot of information from other teachers who are here, their lesson plans and how they've done things. So I found that that's a bit easy. I don't have to think from scratch. What am I going to do? How do I do it? So teaching, it's fairly easy if you get into a routine, if you train your children, if you plan and if you know what to do, which is not like back home. Back home, I taught from 7:30 till 3 o'clock. I was teaching, but here it's just 3 hours, and the rest of the day I get to plan, yeah, and prepare for the next day, for the next week.
Yeah, and I teach at the secondary level. So my students are year 9, 14-year-olds. And
Yeah,
back when I was teaching, it was the same thing. You taught from, 7:30 until 2:30, 3 o'clock, and you had 7 or 8 50-minute classes. And here I'm teaching 2 or 3 50-minute classes a day. And the rest of the time
yeah,
is for planning, for meeting, for professional development. And that's one of the things that I've been loving about teaching abroad is it
mm,
helps you have that work-life balance because you're able to get all of your work stuff done at work. And the
yeah,
culture is very much supportive of families and having time with your family. And so the days are structured so that you can do that.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. So, Kanisa, I want to say that it's been really inspiring to hear your story. And do you want to tell people about your TikTok or
Yeah, sure. If you want any more information about being a single mom in Brunei, I am on TikTok as Khanyisa, Khanyisa, living loud, or on my Instagram, Khanyisa_Makahane, which is my surname. You're more than welcome to reach out, and any information that I have, I will share.
And I'll put that information in the description for
Uh,
anyone who wants to take a look at how a single mom is living her life teaching abroad and how you might be able to do that as well. One of the things that Kanisa said, which is true, is that on its face, it seems like teaching abroad is very easy to do. You put a resume online, you apply, but there's so much more to it than that, which is why I coach educators through that process. Some of the same things that Kanisa has talked about, figuring out your why and just having an action plan that includes
mm,
what your destination is. Where do you want to live? Because some people want to live where it's hot by a beach. Some people want to live
yeah.
in Europe where there are seasons. There are all of these things that go into your decision. And then also understanding that that visa process takes a long time and knowing, what offer is a good offer and what additional perks do you want. For instance, in addition to housing, here we also get flight allowances after we've been here for a year, and they pay up front to fly us over. Whereas some schools will want you to pay your own way to get to their country, and then maybe they reimburse you. I help teachers look at
Mm,
what's the best financial package for them as well. And then once you get here, what's the best way to make sure that you thrive once you get here? How can we build a community? How can you get your routines down? Things of that nature. So I'll have some stuff in the description for anyone who wants to schedule a clarity conversation to see if I can help walk you through that process, because I'm telling you, it is worth it. If you are feeling like you are unfulfilled in your current teaching position, if your workload is ridiculous, if you're having to work a
Yeah.
part-time job driving Uber or working at Target because you can't make
Wow.
meals meet, it does not have to be that way. Go through this process and see the world and still enjoy the career that you've chosen, helping children. So again, if that
Yeah.
sounds interesting, check out a clarity
Can I
call.
add on to just what you just said? I hope like single moms do take this opportunity and reach out to you, because applying is emotionally draining. That's the hardest part. It's emotionally, physically draining. I wish I had somebody to talk to or reach out to. And also, being a single mom, you don't have to tell sad stories. That's the one thing I don't like. I don't want my son to tell a story about how my mom couldn't keep the light bulbs on, or how my mom wasn't there. Like, you know how people sing and rap about those or tell those stories? It doesn't have to be your story. Like, living abroad has allowed me to be a financially stable mom, a happy mom, and provide a quality of life for my son that is good. He doesn't have to tell sad, soppy single mom stories.
No sad single mom stories. Come abroad and don't have a sad single mom story. I love that.
Yeah, there's a
It's
lot of those. You don't have to.
It's so true. It's so true. Well, thank you again for joining me today and for sharing your story with everyone. And hopefully that does help someone who is on the fence about whether or not they should start this process. And to
Mhm.
all my viewers, make sure you join me next time, where I will be talking about more specifics of teaching abroad and doing it in a way that doesn't drain you, doing it in a way that focuses on your values and your why, so that you can start thriving in the career that you love. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.